evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 729th edition of the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. I'm your host, Daniel Feuerstein. I'll give you American perspective of our clubs, leagues, players, national team, and other fabulous moments. Get your daily reading from me and other writers over at Beyond the 90, at beyondthe90.substack.com, and locally in New York soccer over at baddogsports.com. Ladies and gentlemen, come on in. The chat room is open here on YouTube. Come on over, talk amongst yourselves if you like. You have a question for me, I'll try to answer it to the best of my abilities. And please don't forget to subscribe here for your daily American soccer content. And let's go ahead and get through the necessities, of course. And that is my sponsor for this show, of course. It is Dino Luzzi Energy Drink. When I need that kick to power through match analysis and transfer rumors, there's only one drink that I use, and that's Dino Luzzi Energy Drink, crafted in Italy, because real insiders love to talk about their sport because I use a real energy drink like Dino Luzzi. And today is a great show, ladies and gentlemen, and the reason is this show will be about one man and one man only, and his name is Dr. Joe Machnik. And of course, if you may know Dr. Joe, in the most recent several decades, he is the rules analyst for Fox Sports when he does MLS games, when they had the MLS, they still have MLS games, but it's not really, going on. But he was there to, of course, do the MLS package. And then, of course, before they moved on to the Apple TV deal, and technically they're still doing the linear matches whenever it gets selected, but once again, it is mostly through Apple. He also does Fox Sports when they do the CONCACAF Gold Cup, and of course, World Cup itself, which will be this summer again for Fox Sports. This will be his third World Cup, of course. And, he's had a very long life in this game, 7 decades worth. And his book came out, and that is this book right here, From the Sandlots to the World Cup, 7 Decades of American Soccer, by Dr. Joseph A. Machnik. Now, this man has seen everything. He has played the game. He has coached the game. He has officiated the game. He has worked for Major League Soccer, running the officials department for the league, and everything and anything else. He's also been a match commissioner as well. And so this is going to be a long show. I want to give everyone, the heads up. This will be a very long show because, to talk to this man and to find out everything he has done for the game personally, as well as professionally, it has just been a wonderful conversation to have with him. And I enjoyed talking to Mr. Machnik all throughout the show. A Brooklyn native in Greenpoint neighborhood. And, it's one of those shows where you got to learn a lot. And this is like through the years and years and years through his life that what he's done in this game. Of course, well before Major League Soccer, during the time of the original North American Soccer League, what happened with the 1990 World Cup, and everything else he has done for Long Island University and the University of New Haven in Connecticut. So trust me, everyone, when I say this, you're going to have fun. You're going to learn a lot. And once again, it's a book like this that we must contain and protect our history. If we do not have history in this game, then it means nothing. And even though you may not be traveling to Frisco, Texas, make sure you make a trip to the Soccer Hall of Fame, where Toyota Park is, the home of FC Dallas, but it's also the home connected to the National Soccer Hall of Fame. Head over there. I know I want to get over there. I want to go and enjoy myself, of course, and travel over there as fast as I can. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, here he is right now in a recorded interview. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. My guest for tonight in recorded interview, Dr. Joe Machnik, talking about his book and the contents of his book, From the Sandlots to the World Cup, 7 Decades of American Soccer. And here he is right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the American Soccer Show here. I'm your host, Daniel Feuerstein, and I'm joined by a very special guest. This gentleman has seen everything in American soccer from his days in New York as a player, in school, coaching, in college, of course, officiating, the indoor game, the outdoor game, international game, and everything else that's happened. A real trove of time machine has joined me. Mr. Joe Machnik joining me to talk about his recent book, and here it is, From the Sandlots to the World Cup, 7 Decades of being involved with the game in the United States. Joe, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. And how are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you for this invitation. This is a fabulous opportunity. I really appreciate talking with you, especially about the book and about my 7 decades of involvement in American soccer.
When you sit down in your home in South Carolina, I believe you're in Charleston or just outside of Charleston.
Right.
When the things you've seen and the things that have built up to where we are now, how amazed are you that you've seen all this, you were a part of all this, and that, you know, your thoughts and your ideas were basically, you know, not just a testament to your own beliefs in this game that we love so much in the United States, but your part in developing anything and everything to improve the game itself?
Well, that's a great question. And I often think of my friends who are no longer with us, you know, like Bill Killen and Leonard Lusenko, Gene Chislewicz, Walter, obviously, Bob McNulty. These were coaches who started when I started, you know, in the 60s and certainly in the 70s. And if they were with us today, they would not believe where soccer is in America and how it has become, you know, part of our pop culture. I mean, I can remember watching TV one time, I think it was a Cosmos game, and a commercial came on. And in the commercial, a woman was driving a station wagon, not an SUV, but a station wagon. And she opened the back of it, and a whole bunch of soccer balls came out. And that was the first time, I think, ever that we saw a soccer ball, you know, back in, you know, in a commercial advertising, whatever product it was, probably a car. So, I mean, it's amazing where we are today. I played, you know, a small role in a little bit here and a little bit there, kind of being, you know, in the right place at the right time. And so I was witness to so much of how soccer grew and developed, you know, both increased in size and quality of play, the, you know, women's game. And now when you look at where we are, I mean, there are soccer facilities all over the country with 15, 16, 20 fields, grass. When we played in New York City on the ovals like Metropolitan Oval, Eintracht Oval, Zuriga Oval in the Bronx, where I know you are from, there was no grass on those fields, and that's why we call them sandlots. And that's why the book is entitled From the Sandlots to the World Cup.
Yeah, that's amazing. You never played at the Williamsbridge Oval in the Norwood section of the Bronx? Because that's where I was closer to.
No, I did not. But it's amazing how all of these fields were called ovals. There was a place, New Farmers Oval in Queens and Sport Friend Oval in New Jersey. None of them were ovals. I mean, shaped like an oval. So, no, I never played there. In fact, I never heard of that field, but that's interesting.
Yeah, no problem at all. And of course, you are originally from Brooklyn, New York. In which neighborhood, once again?
I grew up in Greenpoint, which is the northernmost part of Brooklyn. if you go across the Kosciuszko Bridge over the Newtown Creek, you're in Queens. So yeah, and right on the East River. So from where I lived, I could, on the corner, look to my left and see the skyscrapers in Manhattan.
No, that's amazing. And of course, with so many schools there and so many of those clubs all over the five boroughs. I mean, I don't know what's over in Staten Island, obviously, because Staten Island, they're on their own, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, there was a park in Greenpoint, a rather large park. It encompassed 3 or 4 city blocks at different parts. And there was a swimming pool there that was the 5th largest swimming pool in New York. It was called McCarran's Park, and they had a field surrounded by a cinder track that was only used on Sunday when an ethnic team would come there and play soccer. And that was my first exposure to the game. And I used to go to the park on Sunday afternoon, watch the game, sometimes just to kill time, because I was always go to the Sunday night New York Ranger game at the Old Garden. And back then, with a high school ID card, we called it a Geo card, you could get into the Old Garden, Madison Square Garden, for 40 cents. So you had to run up the stairs, no escalator, no anything. Seats were not reserved. You could only see the entire ice from the first 3 rows. After that, you would lose, So we would go up there and put coats on chairs, save them for our friends who were coming later. There was only a 6-team league back then. The players didn't have names on their uniforms. They didn't wear helmets. The rosters were much smaller, and you knew every player just by their body language, sometimes even facial expressions, sometimes even voice. And so I was a big hockey fan. And when I went to high school, Brooklyn Tech, had to take the subway to go there, the GG, which ran through Greenpoint. Okay. And went to Brooklyn Tech, and I met someone in an English class who was from, he was from the Ukraine. His name was Andrew Shepardovich. And we started talking about, first about hockey, because the Boston Bruins had this, what they call the Ukrainian line, with Johnny Busick, Vic Stasiuk, and a non-Ukrainian Branko Horvat. So yeah, he said, we had this conversation. He said, "You ever play soccer?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, have you ever seen?" I said, "Yeah, I watch it every Sunday." He said, "Well, we need a goalie for the JV team. Can you come up to the gym Tuesday after school or whatever?" So I did. Actually, I said, "Sure." And because I knew, he said, "Well, did you ever play?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, you could be the goalie." So because I knew angle play from watching hockey so much, so when I got up to the gym and they put 2 gym stanchions, these poles, and a bunch of mats on the floor, and people started taking shots, I knew that if I stayed on the mats, I was not going to save anything. So I had to come off the mat to cover the angle. So now I'm starting to diving on the wooden floor and everything, and the coach is saying, "Oh, this kid, he's fearless." So I made the JV team, and then the next year the varsity, and was pretty good actually at it as a shot stopper. Goalkeeping is much different today than it was back then. Back then you were a shot stopper, basically. I mean, if they passed the ball back to you, you could pick it up. You could pick up a throw-in from your own, from your own teammate. The laws of the game have changed dramatically as far as goalkeepers are concerned. So this gentleman, Shepardovich, after the high school season, he took me to his club. The club was the New York Ukrainians, and they had a clubhouse in the East Village on St. Mark's Place, which was basically 8th Street for a short period, maybe 12th Street, no, 8th Street, and I played in the ethnic leagues, first as a junior player, then as a reserve then, the juniors played at 11 a.m. When I graduated, I played for the reserve team at 1 o'clock. And then finally for the first team at 3. Mostly I was a backup goalkeeper for the first team.
I have to ask you because you saw a lot of construction in New York City. I mean, being in Brooklyn, you saw the Verrazano Narrows Bridge being built. That's amazing to me because obviously I was born in 1973. And anytime you would drive towards Brooklyn, or if you're in the southern tip of Manhattan, you look outside of the harbor of in southern New York, especially South Street Seaport, and you can see the Verrazano Bridge. It's been part of the skyline in New York City for such a long period of time, but you actually witnessed it being built. And then, when you were playing in that game over in Throg's Neck in the Bronx, of course, they were building the Throg's Neck Bridge that connected, from the Tremont, where Tremont Avenue ended, all the way to Queens and going towards the Cross Island Parkway to go towards Long Island. What was that like for you, just to see, industry building important facilities for New Yorkers just across, different boroughs, and to get to destinations that, even for you, you needed to get there to play these matches when you were part of the New York Ukrainians?
Well, actually, Brooklyn Tech, is an engineering, primarily engineering school. But we had no soccer field in the Fort Greene area. We used to practice on the roof. The roof had a cage on top of it, and we used to knock the ball around there, but nothing like a full field. So we only got to play games in a field in the Sheep's Head, in Fort Hamilton. And it was all Fort Hamilton. We took the subway to Fort Hamilton. And if you go along the Belt Parkway in New York today, that field is still there. If you're heading towards Coney Island, you look to the left, the bridge is up there to the right. That field is still there. And so we were like underneath the bridge when it was being built, Verrazano. And then when my first game with the Ukrainians, it was against Sport Club New York. Their home field was in Throg's Neck. And the same thing, look up, it was right on the water. Look up there, they were building the Throg's Neck, as you say. But I was not infatuated with engineering. I think the thing that I learned the most at Brooklyn Tech was that I didn't want to be an engineer. I went to parochial elementary school, so I had no background in physics, in chemistry, in the sciences, even shop. I mean, my freshman year, I was in wood shop. I didn't know how to use the tools or anything like that. In Brooklyn Tech, you had shop every semester. So it was an amazing high school. I found it, however, very difficult for me. I had an easier time in college, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can ask you this, what really pulled you to become a goalkeeper? What was the reason that you felt that goalkeeper suited you than being an outfield player as a defender, a defensive mid, an attacking mid, or even a striker? What made you go to the goalkeeping position?
It was, I had no choice because, I grew up playing Little League baseball. I played basketball for my elementary school, actually, and so I had no eye to foot coordination where I could walk on a soccer field and play any position other than goalkeeper. So I had no real choice, but my eye to hand coordination was good. And back then, I told you, you were mostly as a shot stopper, and with what I knew about angle play. And a lot of courage that I had, my forte was actually taking the ball off opponents' feet. I had no problem diving at the feet of an opponent, sometimes taking out my own player to get there, my own teammate to get there. But, so I had no choice. It was an easy decision.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously I've heard the word, I know what it means, but tell me, What is this kamikaze style you're talking about in this book?
Well, I think for those that read the book, they will see that throughout my career at various different levels, I had to take a risk. So I mean, I even forfeited tenure as a university professor to join Major Indoor Soccer League full time. So that's a risk. So the kamikaze style was because I was a risk taker. So I had no problem challenging for the ball. Different than today's goalkeepers, to be sure. I mean, if you watch the modern goalkeeper, they've developed a stand-up style, especially when the ball's coming in from an angle. They call it the spider. One hand is up, one hand is down, one leg is out. So, and they don't dive at the feet of the opponents the way I did back then. So I was a bit of a kamikaze. I was a risk taker.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
And my motto was, and this is the way I taught it also when we did the goalkeepers camp. I said, if you could get the ball before the player shoots, that's step number one. Mm-hmm. If you could get the ball as he shoots, step number two. If you could get the ball just after he shoots, you were so close to him that the shot hit you, that's step number three. So those were, three tenets of how I played and how I taught the position.
No, absolutely. And of course, what was that like being at Brooklyn Tech for the soccer team where you were in the PSAL League, Public School Athletic League, of course, in New York City? You did well as the starter for the JV back over in 1958 for the championships. And then you went to the senior year, but you were on the bench. Did that dismay you a bit? Or you were just saying, okay, I'll just wait for my turn to get the starting job, to get the starting nod?
Well, that's correct. And you've done your homework. So the JV, obviously, when I was on the JV, I played regularly. And when I was on the JV, the varsity team won the city championship. And they had an outstanding team of striker, especially Ray Klavecka, who scored 43 goals, which at the time, I believe, was a PSAL record, Public School Athletic League. The next year, many of those players graduated, including Ray Klavecka. So we kind of had a much younger team, and I did start as the backup. But over time, for whatever reason, the coach decided to give me a shot, and then I retained the starting position maybe from one quarter of the season gone. And we made it into the playoffs. I think we won 2 games, and then it might have been a quarterfinal or a semifinal. We played against Grover Cleveland High School, which was located right across the street from Metropolitan Oval, and the team was loaded with outstanding players. And one of them was named Walter Luschka. And after high school, he went to Austria and had an outstanding career playing in Europe. And we lost the championship game, or the playoff game to them, I believe 3-0. And the coach, Mr. Arthur Peck, came to me after the game, and I had made a lot of saves in the game. They were much better than us. And he said that he had never seen a goalkeeper play better in an obvious loss. And fortunately for me, there was the coach of Long Island University was present at the game. The game was played at Pratt Institute, right up the street from LIU on DeKalb Avenue, not far from Brooklyn Tech. So he had seen the game. He was building a program at LIU. He wanted Ray Klavecka to be their goal scorer. Ray was at Bronx Community College at the time. And Mr. Peck said to him, yeah, I can get you Ray Klavecka, but you got to take Joe Machnik too. So the two of us, Ray Klavecka and I, we were the first financial aid for soccer recipients at Long Island University, Brooklyn.
That's amazing. And obviously, you were at the time amateur player on the New York Ukrainians, I believe, before they were going into becoming a professional club. Because I know you wanted to keep your status as an amateur or at least as a college athlete at Long Island University. But talk about your time with the New York Ukrainians, and you're facing some of these clubs back in the day that are probably either not around anymore or have probably reduced themselves to being an academy club these days. Obviously, I'm familiar with Blau Weiss Gotchi, the New York German Hungarians, obviously DSC Brooklyn, of course, in the German American Soccer League that was going on over there. When you faced those clubs, how impressed were you of the level of compete that they gave? And, what amazed you about watching those clubs perform in front of you over in Brooklyn?
Well, this is not far after the ending of World War II. So there was a lot of immigration from Europe after World War II. So the German American League was loaded with teams whose ethnic backgrounds, yes, there was a lot of German clubs, but there was also the New York Greek Americans. There was also in teams was the New York Hungarians. There was a big immigration from Hungary, and in fact, the goalkeeper for I used to watch. Part of how I learned to play was to go behind the goal and watch some of the goalkeepers play in the big time when I was a junior player. So their goal, like 26-time goalkeeper for Hungary and the Olympic team goalkeeper, and I watched him play and I imitated many of the things that he did. He later went on to be coach at University of Rhode Island, and he actually may have started the first goalkeeper camp at University of Rhode Island, and then I started one the same year, but in a later, his was in July, mine was in August, and then our goalkeeper camp became national in a very short period of time. We had a big success with that. Yeah. So, I learned not only about those cultures, I learned a lot about those cultures and the importance of soccer to them. It was, incredible the amount of passion not only they played with, but the fan base. So every Sunday for the senior games, you would have, you would think this is not a big crowd today, but you put 1,500, 2,000 people around the field without bleachers, just around, like on the touch line. That's a big crowd. And sometimes the crowd even came onto the field unnecessarily. You didn't want them to, but sometimes they did. Yeah, we had a lot of interesting.
Talk about some of your teammates. I love these nicknames, obviously. Nicknames are always great, around the locker room. You know who's who, and you can just have some fun. Obviously, Mr. Wasil Ponchek, you called him Poncho, which normally be for a Spanish guy, I think. But
well, Ponchek translated into Poncho. We had his Yaroslav Kulba. We called him Cool Baby.
Yeah.
There was one, I don't know that I put this in the book. So there was Mark Chomut, and and they took the name Chomut, changed it, put the Moot in front of the Cho, and he became Mucho. Sheparovich was Shep. Yaropolk Kolina, he was totally blonde, almost white hair. We called him Whitey. Shmotoloka was Junior because he was small in stature but big in his game. Anatol Popovich was Popeye. So everybody had a nickname but me.
Who the heck is Kangaroo?
His last name was Nimachensky, and we called him Kangaroo because of the way he played. He kind of just he just loped around. He was a center back, but he loped around the ball. And he had a brother, and we gave the brother the nickname Kangaroo's brother.
That's fantastic. I love stuff like that. That is awesome. Obviously, the Open Cup is a fabulous tournament. Obviously, like the FA Cup, all these federational cup competitions across the globe in each country's soccer program, football program. Back in the day, of course, facing the Philadelphia Ukrainian Nationals, that had to be one of the best sides ever in the Northeast, collectively within the area.
Right. The Philadelphia Ukrainian Nationals for 3 or 4 years were the class of East Coast soccer. And then New York Hungarians also for 2 or 3 years. And then finally 1 year, the New York Ukrainians won the Open Cup. And that was in 1965-66 season. The seasons went through the winter and the traditional FIFA calendar. So, and our team, wow, hold on a second.
Take your time.
Huh?
Take your time.
Oh, wait a minute. I was going to show you a picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, apologize, but it's in the book.
Okay.
It's in the book. So our team, New York Ukrainians, there may have been only 2 or 3 players of Ukrainian descent on the team at that time. And our coach was Gordon Bradley, who later became coach of the Cosmos, the original Cosmos. We had a player, Mario de Mello Paz, who played for Belenenses of Portugal. And he came to America to play in the International Soccer League, which we had in New York there for a period of time. And he stayed. And then we had an outstanding forward, 2 forwards, Ted Purdon, from England, who played with Sunderland, and Peter Smethurst, who was really our goal getter, and he was from South Africa, English descent, and his brother was Derek Smethurst, who played for Tampa Bay in the NASL. But Peter, and many of them lived in Canada, and they would come down from Canada on Sunday to play for us. Obviously, our club would fly them down, and they made some good money, and flew back after the game. It was professional soccer as it was known back in the day. The most I ever made was $35 a game.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, that was probably a lot back then.
Well, it's more than it was more than a week's worth of groceries. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And you played clubs in from Toronto, obviously the Toronto Ukrainians, the Toronto Italians, the Toronto Roma, and Toronto City. I mean, I don't know if those clubs are still existing up in the Toronto area, but what was that like to face these clubs? Like, was it one Sunday a week you faced them, or was it like a bunch of games a day?
No, only the games were only played on Sunday.
Right.
So the only time you would ever have a midweek game, like a Wednesday night game, would be if they were trying to make up the schedule because there were so many games snowed out in the winter. So, and there was only one field in New York, Eintracht Oval, it's not there anymore, that had lights where they could play a doubleheader on a Wednesday night just to make up the schedule. So other than that, it was typically a Sunday league. Maybe in the spring, late spring, in order to make up some game, they might play a Saturday game. But most of the fan base back at that time, they're all working on Saturday. So those games were not well attended. You wanted to play on Sunday.
Absolutely. So the club absolutely had a sponsor, which is at the time K&B Meats. Of course, it's a butcher shop, I believe. What was that feeling to have a company like that, a butcher shop, to sponsor the club for the Ukrainians, for them, and to feel special that someone business wanted to show their support financially.
Yeah, we actually had K&B on the back of our warm-ups uniforms, and they supplied uniforms, and I guess they also paid for some of the players to come down. I'm not 100% sure how that worked, but yeah, I mean the back when the Ukrainians were good in the late '60s and thereafter. There's even an article in U.S. Soccer where it says when Ukrainians ruled the world or something when we won the Open Cup. Yeah, so having a sponsor was, very unique at that particular time, kind of special.
Now talk about this. Now, you played in a tournament indoors at the 34th Street Armory. Now, was this in Manhattan or was this in Brooklyn on 34th Street?
Manhattan.
Okay, and it was on the east side or the west side?
I think East Side.
Okay.
Yeah, I think East Side. It was in the Armory.
Yeah.
Armories were pretty big back then. I don't know how many exist still in New York City, but for example, when the circus came to town, Madison Square Garden, the Knicks played in the Armory. Regular NBA games. So because the circus took over the Garden floor. Back then, you couldn't put the circus over ice or anything like that. So, yeah.
Nope.
So, yeah. And so I played a couple of seasons this indoor tournament on wood, a lot of splintered wood because of the tanks and stuff that would run over it, So they would set up goals and the tournament would go over multiple weeks, I guess. But there was one in Passaic, also in New Jersey, I played in. And then particularly one time, the Ukrainians decided to bring down their top players from Canada, and we were going to go for it. And we were actually playing in a game when the fire alarms went off. And I'm sure there's a record of this someplace. So, we wanted to play, and here are the alarms going off, and we're still playing. And finally, the building had to be vacated, and the tournament was canceled after that. Either they couldn't find another facility or they just gave up on it.
Yeah, I know that the on Kingsbridge Road and Jerome Avenue, the Kingsbridge Armory is still up, even though it's not being used by the military anymore. I know they're trying to turn it into either some sort of an international market of some sort. I know Mark Messier tried to turn it into indoor multiple ice rink facility for hockey, but I just don't think it worked, and I just don't think it happened. I have always said to myself, if I were a rich man, obviously.
If I were a rich man, I know.
If I were a rich man, because I would, what I would have done was I would have kept the Armory up, but I would find a way to maybe separate a wall and maybe build it and turn it into, this is just my dream, of course, it's not reality. I would turn it into the La Bombonera of the Bronx. Let's put it that way. I really thought about it. If I can do that, keep the facade, keep the history of it, and just put a professional club in there, But obviously, it's still a pipe dream of mine one day, but I don't think it'll ever happen. If I can win 10 times the Powerball and the Mega Millions, then yes, I'd have the money.
Well, I tell you what, I got for tonight. I got the thing. I have the winning numbers for tonight. So there you
go. That's it. Forget your pension, Joe. Just go for that.
I wish. Let me tell you, there was no pension in the world of soccer.
No, that's true too. Unfortunately. Let's go to 1965. You were in the international tourney over at Downing Stadium. Obviously, that was the original outdoor stadium on Randall's Island before it was torn down to build Econ Stadium, which is obviously more improved than what the old girl used to be. And Ukrainians faced amazingly Eintracht Frankfurt of Germany, Fiorentina of Italy, and a Greek side, if I can pronounce it correctly, I'll get my friend because he's Greek, Aris Thessaloniki,
Yeah.
I believe.
So, yeah, and so the German American League, which was the top league in New York, arguably,
Yep.
They every year they would have a festival and on Randall's Island, and they would bring a team mostly from Germany, and they would play against the German American League All Stars, not only in the first division, and then Division II would play against Division III All Stars and stuff like that, and it was a big deal. So Randall's Island was a facility. It was not really a soccer facility, but it was a facility on which you could play soccer. Mm-hmm. And it was horseshoe. It was open on one end. It was a horseshoe and had a track around it. I remember, and I'm not so sure the field was regulation, but it was used for major soccer events. I mentioned earlier the International Soccer League. So the International Soccer League predated the NASL. It was a league formed by Bill Cox, where he brought over in the summertime, and I'm talking in the early 60s, because I remember I was in college, and you could get into the game with a college ID for $2. So, and they had double headers on Sunday. So he brought over, for example, Bangu of Brazil, Everton, West Ham of England, Belenenses, which I mentioned, of Portugal, Norrköping of Sweden, all teams, Gornik from Poland. They played this tournament. Red Star of Yugoslavia. They played in the Polo Grounds too when the Giants left, and Dukla Prague, which was a really amazing team. So it was pretty successful. Actually had a TV contract. It was on Channel 9, WOR. And I will tell you who the announcer was. You won't believe it. Oh, wait. Oh, man. He had a game show. It's going to come to me. I apologize. He had
Gene Rayburn.
Huh?
Gene Rayburn.
No, not Gene Rayburn. No. Monty Hall.
Ah, yes, Monty Hall. Let's make a deal.
Was the announcer, later taken over by Win Elliott, who was the announcer for the Rangers. But anyway, so one year they decided, let's run a tournament on so-called Easter week. And they brought over these three teams you mentioned. And at the time, the Ukrainians were the best team in New York, and had a good following. So they put us in the tournament, and they brought a team from Greece because the New York Greek Americans had a good following, and of course a team from Germany and a team from Italy. So we played a Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday tournament, and we got our. We learned a lot of lessons. Like I said, I was the backup goalkeeper. I didn't get to play, but we lost the first game. I don't remember the scores, and then we lost the second one as well. But we finished with a tie against the Greek squad. But it was a big thing, and so being one of the few local players speaking English, at least well enough, there was a marketing firm that said, let's advertise this tournament. So who can we get? So to go on TV and advertise the tournament. So I went representing the New York Ukrainians. I went on Joe Franklin's Memory Lane, which was a show on Channel 9 also in New York in the afternoons. And then there was a show, Nightline, I think it was called, with Les Crane. Yes. And Les Crane wasn't the host that particular week. Jack Carter was. And we went, myself and 3 or 4 players, we went and we demonstrated some stuff in front of a live audience, in fact. Pretty much like if it was Stephen Colbert's show, which is, not their effective last night.
Yeah. In that game, obviously, I think because it was a 3-game series, obviously, you played on Sunday, you played on Wednesday, and then another one on Sunday. And no one wanted you to dress. The people of the team didn't want you to dress because they already had you had 2 goalkeepers. You were considered the third. They didn't want you to be out there. And Gordon Bradley defended you.
Yeah.
Vehemently defended you and told them, you got to they have to give you the chance to be there. And of course, it doesn't matter what job you have, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, or in a business, or, a department store, even if you're a professional athlete, they'll find a way to make sure they don't give you the money you deserve. And that was their reason why, which is a real shame, unfortunately, in my book. But
yeah, no, actually, we had 2 goalkeepers. I was the backup. But our first team goalkeeper, Nelson Yableski, couldn't play at night. I guess he struggled with his vision or whatever. And the best goalkeeper in New York at that time was from Eintracht, the team Eintracht. His name was Uwe Schwartz. So they hired Uwe to play in this tournament. And Nelson was his backup, and I became left out. And so, I mean, I was in the locker room dressed, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, you're not going to dress today. And, and then, so, I mean, like nobody told me in advance. And then, but then, Gordon stood up and said, well, we got to dress him. He may be on the back, and we have to pay him because after this tournament, we're going to need him. So the fact he stood up for me, and years later, I met Gordon before Soccer Bowl at an NASL party. He had been coaching the Cosmos and all, and he was now in Washington, and he reminded me of it. I didn't forget it, obviously, but the fact that he remembered it was really a thrill for me.
No, that's fantastic. Of course, later on, I think you faced against Rochester Lancers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that had to be a big moment. We all know, I mean, Michael Lewis. I know Michael Lewis. Right. He's from Rochester, obviously, covered that club when they were the outdoor team. What was that like to face them and, to get a clean sheet against them? That had to be a big, big moment for you.
I'm already now playing with the Newark Ukrainian Siege, they were called. And that were a team originally in the ASL, American Soccer League. But for 1 year, there was a competition they called the Eastern Conference. Mm-hmm. So we played against Boston, against Rochester, against Baltimore. So I think I shut them out at home. I know I played in Rochester and gave up a goal, at least one goal, at Aquinas Stadium in Rochester. But Michael found an old lineup. And so in the lineup, it was like Newark Ukrainians against Rochester Lancers. And then as goalkeeper, my name was spelled Machnyk. And so Michael contacted me via email and said, is that you? I said, yeah, because the Ukrainians often change the spelling of my name and to make it look more Ukrainian, NYK, as opposed to NIK.
The whitewashing, how dare they?
Yeah. I did last week, I did a podcast, Daniel, actually that emanated or originated in Ukraine. So it was really interesting. So the questions were asked in Ukrainian. They had an interpreter in Philadelphia. And so they would ask me, and I explained the same situation to them that we just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you then played over in the Connecticut State League for the New Haven City Club. And what was that for you to go from the Ukrainians in Brooklyn, then to Newark Ukrainians, and then you go to Connecticut to play for a club there? Was that just, all the bouncing around? Was that a bit tough for you, or that was fine?
Well, actually, in 1969, we moved to Connecticut. So,
Ah,
I changed jobs from Long Island University to what was then New Haven College, is now University of New Haven. So I'm at the University of New Haven, and there was already a gentleman there. His name was Don Winshank, and he was from Holland, and he was playing for this team, New Haven City. So in the Connecticut State League, so he asked if I wanted to play. I took the position of goalkeeper, and we played against teams like Hartford Hellenic, New Britain Falcons, Vasco da Gama of Bridgeport, continuation of the ethnic soccer thing. And it was the last team I played for. Shortly thereafter, I played maybe 2 or 3 seasons, and then I started really getting serious about officiating. So it was a team made up. On our team, we had quite a few college coaches. Made it interesting. We had Jim Kuhlman, who was coaching Fairfield, Ephraim Chico Chikorian, who was the assistant at Bridgeport, had a big career in New York playing for Swiss FC. Hubert Vogelsinger, who was a big-time player and coach at Yale. So it was a team made up of some college coaches and some players, Italian-American players who belonged to that club, New Haven City. We had a good team. We made it all the way to the final. I think we won. I think we won the Southern Division, and we lost the championship game to the Northern Division, Ludlow Lusitano, Ludlow, Mass.
yeah, that's amazing. That's great. Let's go to your college coaching career. Before even that, what the whole situation at that time, the point shaving controversy from CCNY, Community College in New York, that was mostly because of the basketball situation. Is that correct?
Yeah. Back in 1950s, the NIT, National Invitational Tournament, was bigger than the NCAA tournament. It was run by Madison Square Garden, and college basketball was king in New York City at that time. And there was a point shaving scandal involving NYU. LIU was involved also, as well as I believe Manhattan College, some others. So as punishment, LIU was banned from participating in the NCAA for 5 years and had no athletic program. And then they began to slowly, because they had a physical education major there, slowly reinstitute their athletic program. And then when they started to, they knocked down some buildings and created an athletic field. You talk about Sandlots. They created an athletic field in downtown Brooklyn there, right by the Brooklyn Paramount Theater. And their first sport that after their probation period, whatever, the first sport that they said that we could start to build the athletic program up again was soccer. And the young coach, Gary Rosenthal, was charged to build the program. And he recruited Ray Klevecker and I. We were the first recruits. So when we got there, the previous 2 seasons, back then, freshmen couldn't play varsity sports. You couldn't. That was an NCAA rule. Mm-hmm. So we had to watch. They went 0-8, and they were winless the season before that too. So the 2 seasons before Ray and I played, they were 0-16-1, I think. And this first season we played, excuse me, would have been 1961, and we were 5-5. And then 5-5 is you say, well, you only played 10 games, but that's where college soccer was back then. You only played 10 games, 10, 12 games. Year 2, we improved. I think we're like 8-3-1 or something like that. And then in the year 3, which would have been 1963, we actually made the NCAA tournament. And we had a playoff game scheduled on a Saturday to play against Bridgeport University. We were going to play at Pratt Field because our field wasn't legal size.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to play at Bridgeport, didn't have a legal field either. They played at Seaside Park in Bridgeport. There was no way they could charge admission. So we played at Pratt, the same field that Brooklyn Tech played their high school playoff game at. So it was kind of like deja vu. And we're ready to play. We're practicing on Friday. We had a 1:00 practice because the game was going to be at 1. And then we got the news that President Kennedy got shot. So everything got shut down. And we didn't play until the following Wednesday. And we lost the game 3-1.
Once again, I'm with Dr. Joe Machnik and talking about his book, From the Sandlots to the World Cup in the 7 Decades of American Soccer. Dr. Joe, your college coaching career, it's amazing what you were able to do with 2 schools with those programs, not just Long Island University, but University of New Haven, of course, before called New Haven College. What was it about the college game that really enhanced your coaching abilities to put these students in the proper positions and to execute?
I wish I knew. But to be fair, at LIU in '66, I inherited a fabulous team from Gary Rosendahl, a really fabulous team. And we went all the way to the national championship game. We lost to the University of San Francisco 5-2 in Berkeley, California. And we also made the tournament the following year, and we lost to Michigan State in the semifinal. The final actually never finished. They got declared co-championship because the field iced over and players were sliding all over the place. So then when I moved to New Haven, my first team was in '69. I moved there and everybody thought, well, this is some fantastic coach. As a young guy, 23 years old, he went to the national championship game. My first year at New Haven, I think our record was 2-10-1. We lost multiple games by 1 goal. And I learned, that without good players, it's very hard to be a good coach. So the recruiting process really got into gear. And by '76, we were in the NCAA Division II. New Haven was in Division II. And so we lost the national championship game in '76. '77, we also made it, lost the semifinal, but won the 3rd place game. So I had, with great players, you can do a lot, as a young coach. Interesting, because I played in the NCAA tournament in '63 with LIU and coached in 2 NCAA finals. Later, I refereed an NCAA final in '88, Division I finals. So it's alleged that I'm the only person that played in the NCAA soccer tournament, coached in 2 NCAA soccer finals, and refereed an NCAA final. So no one stepped up and said, yeah, they've also done that, but it's alleged that I'm the only person that has done that.
Hey, listen, I'll take your word for it. I'm not going to go against you on that one.
I haven't done the research, but there's a young lady, there is a young lady who coaches field hockey at North Carolina, and she played in the national championship and won it, coached in the national championship and won it. Okay, all she needs to do is referee the national championship. She'll be well ahead of me.
Exactly. We'll see what happens if it does happen. You never know. In your mind, out of all the programs you battled against, whether at LIU, at University of New Haven, even in the national championships? I mean, obviously, University of San Francisco is one of those tough programs you got to battle against nationwide. Which programs outside of University of San Francisco were the most difficult to battle against?
Well, that's good. So, I mean, let's focus on New Haven for now. And so we had a fabulous rivalry with across the street was Southern Connecticut State University, coached by Bob Dukranian. Okay, so they were also Division II. And so they had a very good program. We had a good program. We would play each other in the regular season, but we also would meet up in the tournament, in the NCAA tournament. And typically the winner of the game between the two of us would go to the National Final Four. And so those games against Southern Connecticut, would attract really big crowds for Division II in New Haven, and got a lot of press. And it was a really, really great rivalry. Bob Dukranian is a fantastic coach. Did a great job at Southern Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. And of course, during your time coaching, you also got your PhD, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I took a leave of absence. If you're in the university system, back then in the late 60s, well, even 60s, in order to get a soccer job, there were very few full-time soccer jobs. You had to do something else. So at LIU, I was soccer coach, director of intramurals, and a professor in the physical education department. Not full professor, but instructor. That was the title. When I moved to New Haven, I got promoted to assistant professor, but I had to have another job in addition to soccer. So I taught in physical education department, but they said, what do you want to do? You want to be sports information director? Do you want to be intramural director? Or can you coach another sport? So I said, well, I know a little bit about hockey. The hockey job was open, so I'll coach hockey. So what an awakening that was for me. I thought I knew a little bit about hockey. I learned a lot about hockey, coaching it. So I coached hockey for 3 years. And then in order to be on the tenure track, you had to get a advanced degree, PhD. So I received a sabbatical leave, and I went to the University of Utah for the summer of 1970, 71, and then a 9-month residency in 1973 when I finished. I had transferred quite a bit of credits from NYU, and so I was able to finish the degree at that time.
No, that's great to hear, and just amazing stuff. As we move forward here, obviously the 1970 World Cup coming around, and obviously broadcast rights were being doled out, I guess, for the very first time in other countries that, we didn't qualify for the World Cup back then, but still, people want to watch the World Cup, and, you try to corner the market by purchasing these broadcast rights through the closed circuit TV situation. Of course, what is that? They'll probably ask you these days, what is closed circuit television? I don't understand. Well, it's really simple, folks. Basically, whoever purchases the games and you want to watch it, it's not going to be on television. You're going to have to go to a sports bar, or you have to go to some sort of hole-in-the-wall restaurant to hopefully they have the special wire to plug in to watch these games. And of course, back then, I didn't know much about it. I just knew it was something. There's pay-per-view, closed circuit TV, and I had no idea what that meant. Like you need buy a special TV so you can watch the thing. No, you had to go somewhere that had the signal permanently, like you couldn't go anywhere else. And unfortunately, while you were trying to make it, affordable and, watchable at University of New Haven, the Garden beat you to it, didn't they?
It's a good story. So just to be clarify it just a little bit. So in '66 World Cup, the famous game, England-Germany, with the controversial goal off the crossbar and all of that, was shown, I believe, on Wide Worlds of Sports. ABC had a show, Wide World of Sports.
Yep.
The next 4 years, the TV rights for the World Cup in America were bought by the NASL, North American Soccer League, Phil Wisdom, Commissioner. He then farmed out to different communities the rights to broadcast the games on what you call closed circuit TV. So myself, Lenny Lusenko, Bob McNulty, we bought the rights for New Haven Arena, which was a small 3,000 seat arena in New Haven. Actually owned and operated by Maurice Podoloff's brother. Podoloff is a very famous name. They invented the NBA. So we had those rights, and so basically, I think it cost us $1,600, and we bought 2 games. We bought the final, obviously, and a game wound up between Italy and Mexico. So in the first Italy-Mexico game, we were getting ready. You have to buy satellite insurance. They bring in this big satellite dish, a truck, and this incredible machine that you have your fingers crossed that they're going to make the connection. That's why you had satellite insurance. They'll make the connection. And then, it wasn't only soccer that was shown that way back then, but you had Muhammad Ali's fights were on that way, Indianapolis 500, other sporting events. So we had a crowd of 1,000 people, 1,100 showed up for that game, but we were very disappointed because out front, I'm watching, in the street, cars of fans would pull up and they'd say, "How many games are you showing?" And I said, "Well, we got Italy, Mexico." And they said, "Well, the Garden is showing 2." And they kept driving the 90 miles, to New York City. So we got a little bit up, because we didn't have a double header. But for the final, we filled the place. We had 3,000 people. It was a fantastic experience, and we made a little bit of money. And then there's, of course, a backstory, which I don't think we have to go into. But I gave most of the money back to the university to pay for postage that I used.
Oh, no, that's good. Why not?
Yeah,
absolutely. And before we talk about your foray into the MISL, obviously, what was the reason that, the coaching situation, obviously, to help out U.S. soccer for coaching, what really caught your eye to advance coaching in the United States to maybe improve it, not just, I guess, in the collegiate level, maybe a little bit below that, maybe the high school level, and then later on into the professional level?
After the World Cup of 1970, FIFA sent to the United States a FIFA coach. He had been in Mexico. He was part of the technical committee studying the games of the World Cup 70, and he came to Greater New York area. And through Southern New York State Soccer Association and Harry Saunders, they organized 3 weeks of coaching school. His name was Detmar Kramer. By luck, I registered for the first coaching school, which was held at Moses Brown School in Providence, Rhode Island, not far from New Haven. And I caught his eye, so to speak, because I was the only goalkeeper. In the course, there was 15 of us. Gene Chisowitz was there, Lenny Lusenko, Bob McNulty. That's in week 1. The course was so good. We learned so much in the first week that, people were calling like to the payphone in the dorm, should we register for week 2? Or week 3? And my room was by the phone. I'm taking these calls. I said, this is the best thing we've ever experienced. You got to come. You got to read. So guys like Al Miller, Walter Chisowitz, so many others came for week 2, week 3. But he opened our eyes. I mean, back then there were very few books about soccer, very little soccer on television. We had the ethnic games that we've discussed, but we weren't seeing the European, the South American game regularly like you do today. There was no internet, so there's no coaching courses online. I mean, today you could, you want to learn how to play a back 3, back 4, you go online, you put it in, and they'll walk you through it. So we learned from Detmar Kramer that the game had 4 components: the physical, the technical, the tactical, and the psychological. And we applied that. And those people who went to that course and the course the following year, and then later Walter Chisowitz took over the course, those 200, 300, 400,000 coaches that got their A, B, or C license, those are the ones that went all over America doing clinics and coaching schools and camps, spreading the so-called gospel of the game. Often that's overlooked in the growth and development of the game, but played no small part, let me tell you.
No, absolutely. And, to see what U.S. Soccer is trying to do, of course, with their coaching courses, you felt their coaching academy, it was a bit too rigid, I guess a little too strong. So obviously the NSCA, the National Soccer Coaches America Association, they decided to do their own coaching camps and coaching licenses as well for the college game. Did you think that was kind of offsetting? You think there's a little bit of a rival there, or did you feel like they just want to do their own thing and, whatever it be, so be it?
Well, that's a good question. So there were many coaches in the college game at that time that didn't have real playing experience. When you were a physical education major, you learned to coach several sports, actually, and referee several sports also. So they would come to the U.S. soccer coaching schools, and some of them had difficulty in the game. We had to play a game and get scored upon it, or in the practical exercises of especially ball juggling and passing and receiving, all of this. So, but yet these were still good coaches. Detmar Kramer's philosophy was a picture was worth 1,000 words, so that the coach had to demonstrate. He didn't buy the concept that the coach could talk through players and the players could demonstrate and the same result could be achieved. So, and by the way, there's no video at this time. There's no, videotape coaching or anything like that.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a disconnect between U.S. soccer's coaching schools and the college coaching community. So not only did the NSCAA develop coaching courses where the candidate didn't have to present themselves physically in terms of playing or technical ability, but even U.S. Soccer developed some situations where that became part of their program. So yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a turning point, but I think we managed our way through it.
I have to ask you though, and reading in the particular chapter, Detmar Kramer he took a shine to you when you went to the blackboard and you absolutely put on an absolute clinic just to describe what happened from a Dukla Prague match in 1961 from the International Soccer League, and you nailed it in 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes. Because part of the course was you had to, go up and do a classroom presentation, like a locker room presentation.
Yes.
So he threw being, I'm a goalkeeper. He tried to throw me a fastball. So he says, you have midfield play. Go up and talk about midfield play. So one of the best midfielders of the time was this Joseph Mazopust, who played for Dukla Prague. And Dukla
Yeah.
Prague was just in the International Soccer League as champion. So I put up Dukla Prague. I wrote the whole lineup, which I had memorized. And blah, blah, blah. He said, thank you. You can sit down now. So I didn't know. I didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing at the time. But other coaches had to stay up there 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and develop a sweat.
No, that's fantastic. That, to me, that says that you really surprised the hell out of him, and he was happy to see someone like you that can describe all of that going on. That's amazing.
And so, like I told you, it was 3 weeks. So after that 1 week, he said, "Can you come back in week 2 and do the goalkeeping lesson? Come back in week 3, do the goalkeeping lesson." And that was the beginning of my goalkeeping role in U.S. soccer, in the coaching schools, and otherwise. I was doing then goalkeeping clinics all over the country, and that's how and why I started the goalkeepers camp.
Can you talk about Walter Chisowicz, please? What did he mean to you, not just as a colleague, but it feels like he was a close personal friend to you?
And a mentor. So when I was a junior player, he was a senior player on the New York Ukrainians. So we all looked up to him because he was a goal scorer. He was the leading goal scorer in the German American League at that time. And then when he went to Philadelphia Ukrainians also. So I got invited to teach at his camp. One of the first soccer camps in America was All-American Soccer Camp and School that Walter and his brother Gene and Lenny Lusenko ran. And I taught goalkeeping there. And we developed a friendship that over the years resulted in his appointing me to various positions of meaningful in my career. So he trusted me that I could get things done. And so he took me on a trip to Puerto Rico with the Olympic B team. That was our first experience coaching together. Then, he appointed me referee in chief of the indoor league because he was a consultant to the indoor league when I first started. He appointed me assistant coach to the five-a-side World Cup team. He appointed me assistant coach to the 1990 World Cup team. So he was a key opponent. He was a key figure in my life, very important person. One of 3 that I signed as mentors. My first being the college coach, Gary Rosenthal, then Walter, and then Earl Foreman, who was commissioner of the indoor league, who taught me so many things about running a league, because he had been involved in the NBA. He was the owner of the Virginia Squires with Dr. J. Julius Erving. He was part owner of the Washington Redskins. He was involved in the original NASL. So, yeah, I learned a lot from obviously all 3 of them, but Walter was very special.
No, that's obviously tough to see good men like that pass away. I believe he passed away from a heart attack. Is that correct?
Yeah, he died actually at Wake Forest University playing tennis on a tennis course, Labor Day weekend, 1994.
Oh. Very sad to hear that. Very, very sad.
I think it was 57.
Yeah. Now we're going to go ahead and move forward. Obviously, the indoor soccer leagues are becoming a big thing in the United States. Obviously, they're along with, of course, the North American Soccer League coming in. Pele comes in, does a huge explosion for the outdoor game. But, you were part of the Major Indoor Soccer League at that time. What did that mean to you to be a part of the indoor game? And let's be honest. It's a soccer field in a hockey rink, basically. But, what did that mean for you to see the game growing on an indoor level? And at the same time, later on, FIFA adopts it for, I guess it's futsal now, in their own way.
Yeah, correct. So the NASL is still alive, and the Philadelphia Atoms, which was a team in the NASL, they play a game in the Spectrum in Philadelphia against a team from Russia. And, just as back then, it was the whole Russia USA thing with the Olympic basketball scandal, all that. So Ed Teppa, who was a real estate developer in Philadelphia, is at the game and he's watching it. He was part owner of the Philadelphia indoor lacrosse team, maybe full owner. He said, wow, this indoor soccer we could make a league. And back then the NASL was even experimenting with it. But he and Earl Fullman put together this league. They were in Philadelphia, so they hired Walter Chiswitz as a consultant. And Walter said, yeah, this would be great for the American player because there's, lots of touches on the ball. It will give jobs to some American players. It'll give them playing time in a professional atmosphere. A lot of American players were on NASL teams and not getting playing time. So it was seemingly like a good idea. Walter knew that I knew hockey, but I was also referee. And he knew that the new game would have elements of hockey in it, such as substitutions on a fly, penalties, time penalties, where you would go into the penalty box. So he recommended me to be referee in chief. So I refereed the first game. I put together a cadre of referees. I refereed the first All-Star game. I refereed a game in Madison Square Garden, All-Star game, which was a big kick, obviously. And for 5 years, I put together that program. And we actually had to hire full-time referees. I hired 6 referees full-time to specialize in that game. And it might have been the first full-time referee program in the world for soccer. And kind of some of the referees remembered it. And one of them was Essie Bahamas, and who was working, I actually refereed with him in his first professional game. But anyway, so when the MLS, Major League Soccer, came around and they were having difficulty with the referee program in the first year, Essie Bahamas was refereeing a game I was at, and he said, please help us. And the whole thing came together and resulted in a 15-year career at MLS. So I'm looked upon now. I mean, I know we've been talking a long time already. So I'm looked upon now as a little bit of a referee guru, and to fix referee programs in 2 different leagues.
Tremendous. That's really tremendous. If I can ask you this, and I've asked this with other people, that follow other sports, whether it's in the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball. I'll ask you this with soccer. Depending on what position you played, either on the playing surface, what position do you think makes a better head coach later in life? Because it feels like a goalkeeper surveys the entire field better than maybe a forward or maybe even a midfielder, maybe even a defender. Do you feel that might be the case for soccer, that a goalkeeper, probably is a better head coach in the future if he chooses to go that route? Like in baseball, maybe the catcher has a better vision of the field to be a better manager?
Well, that's a good question, because back in the early days, the goalkeeper was never going to be even the captain because they were just a shot stopper. They were not part of the team. As the rule changed, the goalkeeper became more integrated in the total team. So your thought process about seeing the whole field, that makes sense. The whole thing about leadership ability, because a goalkeeper, now you see lots of goalkeeper captains. And you see the goalkeeper being more involved in the total game, starting the attack, balls are played back to him. The whole situation where goalkeepers are now being called goal players, not even goalkeepers, because they have so much more of an active role. So I think it makes a little bit of sense that the goalkeeper at least could fulfill the duties and responsibilities of a coach. I'm not saying that they will be a better coach. It's an individual thing than any field player who's experiencing firsthand what's happening on the field. But it's certainly a goalkeeper should not be outruled from coaching because he or she was a goalkeeper.
Talk about Jim Foster. Now, obviously, you thought him coming in that he may invest in the MISL, but in reality, he had his own ideas for indoor sporting events that was normally on a big field, and that started the Arena Football League. That was crazy.
That was crazy because Earl Foreman invited Mr. Foster to come to the All-Star game at Madison Square Garden, and they're sitting in the end of arena, and he has a manila folder. I'm holding a thing. So he has a manila folder and he's watching indoor soccer and he starts to draw. I'm talking about Mr. Foster. And what he was drawing was a football field and his being while Earl Foreman was hoping he was going to be investing in the indoor game, he actually designed arena football watching an MISL game. Yeah, that was kind of an interesting experience for all of us.
So basically he was spying.
No. He just had a brainstorm,
Yep. Sometimes that happens. Not I'll brainstorm something better. You won't be involved. No. Obviously, it had to be a difficult time for you when the MISL didn't really want to keep you anymore, obviously, because I think you were still doing a job with the University of New Haven, I believe it was, at that time.
I had like 3 jobs. I was
3 jobs.
Yeah. So I was at the University of New Haven. I was running the goalkeeper camp, which had really taken off and had become big business. And I was working for the league. But if you're involved in officiating, if you're a referee yourself, not every call is deemed to be a good call, depending upon what the situation is. So there, over in the 5 years, there were elements of ownership that thought that, number one, I had to leave the university, which I eventually did. Number two, that I had to break up my partnership with John Kowalski in the soccer camp, which we eventually did. We got back together, fortunately, after. But number three, so I was brought into a meeting at the All-Star game in Kansas City, and 2 owners sat down with the commissioner, and they said, "We'd like you to continue to work for us this year, but we don't want to give you a contract for the future." And I was of the opinion that my position, referee in chief, also director of operations, and in charge of the disciplinary committee, I was of the opinion that needed to have a contract to protect myself from outside interference or whatever, because not to be in fear of making a decision against one team, another team, a player, or whatever, that's going, that's could be reversed because I didn't have a contract. So I said, after I discussed it with my wife, Barbara, I said, this is not going to work. I had already forfeited tenure at the university. I said, they're not going to offer me a contract for year 6, 7, or whatever. So I stepped down. Fortunately, at the same time, the New York Arrows were looking for a coach, and I was approached at the very same meetings in the lobby of the hotel. Would you be interested? And that began my indoor soccer coaching career, which also was eventful.
Yep, exactly. Once again, I'm with Dr. Joe Machnik. His book, of course, From the Sandlots to the World Cup, is 7 decades in American soccer, playing, coaching, refereeing, and magic man of the sport from the inside. Dr. Joe, obviously, you were trying to be a head coach for the New York Arrows at the time after you removed yourself from the front office of the MISL, and there was new owners of the team, and apparently they didn't really in reality see eye to eye with you, because you were looking for them to make the playoffs. You were looking for them to continue their winning ways, and unfortunately it looked like they were not interested in that.
It became a period of time where the original owner of the Arrows, the team that won 4 championships, the owners did not make any money during that time. They were playing in Nassau Coliseum at the same time the Islanders were winning those championships. And so we were not drawing the crowds that some of the other cities in MISL were. And they left the team. The owners left the team, and the league had to take it over. And then gentlemen who owned the team in Kansas City volunteered to run the team also in New York. And the situation, not a lot of the good players, well, Steve Jungle in particular, Branko Sagoda, others were sold off, and the team struggled. We were no longer in first place, and we were struggling to make the playoffs. We made it my first year. I took the team over halfway through the season. We did make the playoffs the first year, and we were in the running to make the playoffs the second year. In fact, won a big game. We were struggling for 4th or 5th place with Buffalo. We went up there in Buffalo and won a big game in Buffalo, and then won a big game in Kansas City. And the message came down to me that we were about ready to make the playoffs, but the owner didn't want to make the playoffs because that would mean the loss of more money, and that resulted in confrontation, obviously, and so I was relieved of my coaching responsibilities also.
Unfortunately. And then from there, you moved on to the American Indoor Soccer League. And obviously, you got a call from Mr. Peter Maylock from the Louisville Thunder, who is the president and general manager of the club. They're ready to open up their inaugural season. Obviously, your reputation speaks for itself. They wanted you to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. The American Indoor Soccer Association was already formed, and I think it had 6 teams at the time. The Louisville Thunder was one of those teams. They needed help in their front office, but at the same time, there was a group of owners in that league that were not happy with the way the league was run. So they asked, after a period of time, would I be director of operations? I eventually became commissioner of that league, and because of what I learned from Earl Foreman and others, I was able to do that. It was a good league. Played in smaller cities like Toledo or Louisville, Canton, Ohio, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Some of those cities did not have permanent attendance in their indoor buildings and welcomed having an indoor soccer team. So, yeah, it was a good run. I had difficulty selling franchises, and I knew at this particular time that the World Cup was coming for 1990, and I was being approached by U.S. Soccer to be part of the 5-a-side World Cup team and then later the national team. So I parted ways with the American Indoor Soccer Association after a couple of years.
Yep. And, to talk about that, that had to be exciting for you because this is on an international level now. They wanted you, U.S. Soccer, to run this because of your experience, obviously short with AISA, but mostly with MISL. to me, that just sounds like, U.S. Soccer recognized the hard work you put in to get those club leagues ready to go. And even though obviously they've ended at a certain period of time, but they felt you were very important to talk to.
Well, John Kowalski was the head coach of the Pittsburgh Spirit in the Major Indoor Soccer League. I recruited him to the University of New Haven. He played for me and then also became my assistant coach. So he was an extremely competent indoor soccer coach, and he was named head coach of the five-a-side team. He asked that I assist him in that process, and together we took a team to the first World Championships, which was in Holland. And no one expected anything from us. We were some top teams in the world. Now, this wasn't indoor soccer the way we were playing it in America. There were no dasher boards, no hockey boards. You're playing basically on a basketball court, which is almost same size as team handball in Europe, and with goals that are similar. Anyway, so, Kowalski had been doing it in some tournaments with some success, but this was the first World Championship. So on that team, what should be familiar names to our listeners: Tab Ramos, Peter Vermes, Bruce Murray, Dave Vanoli, Jimmy Gabarra, Eric Eichmann, Julie V, and we did reasonably well. We got out of the first group. We were put in a second group of Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina. We won that group and played in now the semifinal. Unfortunately, we came up against the home team, Holland, in the semifinal, and beating the home team is tough. We lost 2-1, but beat Belgium in overtime in the third place game. Since so many of those players were going to be moving on to try to qualify for World Cup 1990, during the rest of '89, Bob Gansler, who was the head coach, asked if I would assist him in that process, and I did. And we qualified for the World Cup, the first U.S. team to qualify for the World Cup finals in 40 years.
Exactly. I've had Paul Caligiuri on my show many, many years ago talking about that wonderful memory. And, when the documentary came on CBS Sports on the Paramount Plus website and the streaming service, I had him on it. I had Michael Lewis on it. I had Brett Wasser on it too, one of the soccer historians out there. Just to watch that whole situation. And, at the time, I didn't know you were part of the coaching staff. Obviously, we always talk about Bob Gansler because he was the head coach, but had no clue you were part of the coaching staff for him. And that must have been an amazing moment for you to see the shot by Paul Caligiuri. Now, before he shot it, were you thinking, what the hell are you doing, Paul? Pass the ball.
No, not exactly. This particular game was in Trinidad that you're talking about. And
yes,
it was the last game of qualifying in the whole world, actually. So the winner, if Trinidad wins the game, if Trinidad ties the game, they go to the World Cup. We need to win the game to go to the World Cup in Italy, 1990. So the odds were against us, to be sure. And our bench was on the right side of the halfway line, and it was in the direction that we were shooting. So, and I was on the end of the bench. I always stayed at the end of the bench because I was considered to be like the goalkeeper coach also. So and Tony Miola was on the other end, so I was on the furthest end of that bench. So I didn't react to when he took the shot, but when he took the shot, I immediately yelled trouble, because It was a combination of the arc of the ball, the sun in the goalkeeper's eyes, the wind. I mean, this ball did not even hit the net. It bounced in the goal before it hit the net. So it beat the goalie. His name is Paul Maurice. It beat him. He was a little bit off of his line, and he had no backward footwork that he could have tipped it over the bar. And so I yelled, "Trouble!" And then sure enough, it went in the net. So, but I have to promote the play of Tony Meola and the defense in that game, and not only in that game but in the three previous, because we registered. People sometimes forget that we registered 4 straight shutouts, and if any of those shutouts didn't happen, 2 of the games were 0-0.
Yes.
So if we don't have a shutout in that 0-0 game, we lost. We don't get the point. If we don't get the point, then that game in Trinidad is meaningless.
No, exactly. Obviously, before Tony, you had someone that you also depended on. I'm trying to remember. There was David.
David Vinoli.
Vinoli. Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. If he doesn't get hurt during that year, Tony doesn't even exist, and the record books and the history of this game does not even mention him at all.
David Vinoli was the established goalkeeper of the national team, played in the '88 Olympics. Jeff Duback, Yale goalkeeper, was his established backup. I mean, there were certainly other goalkeepers, but Tony Meola was playing in college at the University of Virginia. It so happened that we were playing in a Marlboro Cup in the summer of '89 at Giant Stadium. Back then it was called Giant Stadium. David showed up injured and couldn't play, so we had to find someone to back up Jeff Duback. Tab Ramos and John Harks said, "Well, what about Tony? He lives down the block."
Yes, he does.
so we gave Tony a call. He's still playing in Virginia. I gave him a little bit of a workout at a park someplace and said to Bob, "Yeah, sure, he can play." So it happens that Duback gets hurt in the first game of the Marlboro Cup, and Tony has to go in. We win the game. He starts the second game, which is against Peru, national team Peru. We shut them out 3-0. And now we have a third goalkeeper. And in time, he becomes the first goalkeeper.
Yes, he does. And as they say, history is written in stone. Just amazing stuff. I want to talk about the camps now. What intrigues you to start your own camp? Obviously, you were a guest instructor at other camps for the sport around New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, wherever you wanted to be. Why did you want to start your own camp, and not at first for goalkeepers and then now for everybody?
So as you said, I would go to everyone's camp, and I would go like 2 days or 3 days and work with the goalkeepers there. It got to the point where I was told that parents were calling camp owners and saying, "When is Joe Machnik going to be," parents of goalkeepers, "when is Joe Machnik going to be at your camp? Because that's what I want to send my goalkeeper." So I said, why don't I try to do a camp just for goalkeepers? Everybody thought we were crazy. John Kowalski was going to be my partner. So, they say, they're shot stoppers. After 1.5 days, what are you going to tell them? You're going to keep them from a whole week. What are you going to show them? I applied the 4 components that Detmar Kramer, told us about, and built a program that worked on technique, which is how to do things, that worked on tactics, the when, the where, the why, that worked on their physical abilities, worked on all kinds of, especially footwork, develop a thing that was called It's the feet that get the hands to the ball. Okay, nobody ever really thought about that. You just don't dive from a stationary position. If you use feet work, you get a lot further. Footwork, you get a lot further. And finally, the psychological dimension, leadership and character and all of those things. So the program, the first camp was at Taft School in Connecticut. We had 39 goalkeepers, all boys, from 13 states, mostly from the clinics and, my exposure at coaching schools and stuff. Coaches wanted to send their goalkeepers, but we evidently did a really good job, because the next year we had 200 goalkeepers from 39 states. And then year 3, we were in Chicago and Texas, and then later California. And before you know it, we were all over the country. It came to be, however, that we wanted to expand the tactical realm, when, where, of when, where, and why. And we couldn't create situations, 2v1, 3v2 situations, because the goalkeepers back then couldn't play soccer. Okay, they were like me when I went to Brooklyn Tech. They were concentrating on goalkeeping. So we brought in field players at first to service the goalkeepers, but at the same time teaching them to go to goal. Okay, so we advertised that as strikers, and the game was, total football was emerging, where it didn't matter where you played on the field. You found yourself sometimes going to goal, even like on a corner kick or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we developed a striker goalkeeper component that really took off. And there were a couple summers we did over 3,000 campers.
Wow, that is amazing. And you got the sponsorship originally from Ulsport, I believe, correct?
Yes. Yeah, Shep Messing introduced me to Ulsport, and we had at camp an Ulsport store. There was no internet back then, and very few. I'm sure you couldn't find goalkeeper gloves or goalkeeper jerseys at most sports stores back then. Hey, does this name ring at DeVega's? Does that name ring about DeVega? Huh?
Not really, unfortunately. No.
That was a sports store in New York. Anyway.
No, I don't think. Where was it located?
There will be some listener that will. I remember DeVega.
Yeah.
Anyway,
probably.
That's where I got my first baseball glove. Anyway, so the store did really well, and then later we were approached by Reusch, and we did that for a while, and then we went back to Ulsport, and and then the business changed. It became such that coaching in communities became good, better, and kids didn't need to go to camp as much as they used to. And while our camp is still alive, I think we're the last surviving national camp. This coming summer is our 50th year. It's not like it used to be. It's completely different.
Obviously. Is Greg Andrulis still running it with his wife and his brother?
Yes, Greg Andrulis manages, and his wife manages it, and his brother too, Rob. I think we're no longer on the West Coast. I think Texas is the furthest away from Connecticut, where we started. But we anyone who comes there gets a really good camp experience, both on and off the field.
Oh, fantastic. That's really glad to hear that. I want to go now towards NASCAR. I didn't know you were a NASCAR fan, Joe. I'll admit, I worked at a sports news service. I admit I'm not a racing fan. I mean, I'll watch, but I'm not like a diehard dedicated racing fan like you are and some other people I know. But I did go let's put it this way. It was a working vacation. I was visiting my grandparents here, where I am currently now. Like I told you off the air, I'm living down here at my grandmother's apartment. Borrowed their car and went to Homestead, Florida for the final NASCAR race of the year. Getting down there was pretty cool. Actually being in the pit area and to feel the G-force hitting me here when the green flag went down was unbelievable. But what was that like for you? You were a fan. You watched the NASCAR race out at the racetrack at near New London, Connecticut.
Right.
And, at the wonderful age of 46, you put in a car for the lowest level of introduction racing, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was called Strictly Stock. It was entry level. And actually, the first time I was in the car was for practice of that day. And then for the first race, qualifying race for the feature, I made a 360-degree spin out on the first turn, but kept going, didn't hit anybody. So let me tell you about learning curves. There's a big learning curve. So racing is all about, yes, driver plays a part, car is a part, crew is a part, and pocketbook is a part. So I was driver and chief financial officer for about 6 years. Had a wonderful time. I still follow grassroots racing mostly. I still go up to Connecticut to support a team of which that I have a relationship with, because it's the son of a kid who worked on my car way back then. And he's an excellent driver. He won the championship last year. So I tell you, talk about adrenaline. I mean, the different things that I've done, the adrenaline kick of race car driving is the biggest thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. You get I used to lose 10 pounds on a given Saturday, mostly from nervous energy, I think.
Oh, okay. Your wife wasn't happy with you after your car crash on the track, was she?
I had a big 5.5 rollover at Thompson International Speedway, much bigger track, much faster. She was there. My family was there. It was a question of, it was a unusual accident for the kind of car that I was driving. Yeah, you're right. She wasn't happy. Let's not go there any further.
No, That's it. We're stopping right there.
Okay.
She was mad. That's all we'll go. That's as far as we'll go. Well, all I can say is I'm glad you were able to survive that accident. Yeah, those NASCAR crashes are no joke at all. Even the how you call it, those Formula One races are even pretty bad too. Especially the small aerodynamic cars that they are. It's just amazing what they do over there in Europe and the IndyCar races as well.
And of course, the speeds are much greater too. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If I can ask you, obviously, you had a second stint with the University of New Haven. Debbie Chin, who became the athletic director, contacted you asking you if you wanted to coach the women's team for the first time ever. Obviously, I guess they were starting a women's program, or maybe it was already started. And you knew her very well. You wanted her to be the athletic director originally at your first stint, but it didn't happen for her. But then she finally got it. When she gave you the call right away, you're like, whatever you want, I'm here for you. And off you went.
Well, this is after the World Cup of 1990. And obviously women's soccer is taking off all over the country because of the success of our women's team. And so the university decided to enter a team in women's soccer. They asked if I would help put it together. I left the university under good circumstances. So coming back was not an issue. I hired Debbie Chin as, when she first came as a volleyball coach at 3 other sports. So it was a struggle at first finding players. It was like going to the cafeteria, putting up signs, we're going to have a team. But by the second year, we were competitive. And I think I coached it 4, maybe 5 seasons before MLS called. And, I could not say no to Major League Soccer. I was also teaching in the sport management department, which was, really fun, and I enjoyed that very much. But when MLS called, I had to go.
No, absolutely. And, I have to say this because I do remember that playoff match between the Metro Stars, now Red Bull New York, and DC United at Giant Stadium when the game was 2-2 going into the penalty kick. Well, it wasn't really a penalty kick. It was a shootout, basically, the old NASL
Right.
shootouts that came back into the start of MLS. You were there. You're at the hotel across from Route 3 on the other side of the Meadowlands at Giant Stadium to talk to
Bill Sage. Yeah.
Yep, Bill Sage. And, it sounded like there was a problem with the first season with these officials. Were they not properly vetted, or was it a fitness issue? What were the reasons that you had to come in to help them? And obviously, Sunil Gulati was deputy commissioner at the time under Doug Logan, because he called you to ask you to come.
That's correct. So back then, U.S. Soccer's referee department wasn't quite ready to deal with MLS. I mean, MLS was bringing players in from all over the world in their first year, and very few of the referees had that level experience. So very few of the referees had ever even refereed a game that was on television, for example. So dealing with that whole thing. And of course, then there was also the shootout. So back at the game that you mentioned, MLS hadn't realized that FIFA had changed the penalty kick rule, that you no longer had to submit a lineup to the referee with the exact order of the shooters. Okay, now you just put the 11 players who finished the game out on the field, and they shoot in whatever order the coach wants, but it doesn't have to be submitted to the referee to be exact. So the order can be changed as long as no player shoots a second time before every other player has taken a first shot. So it turns out that Peter Vermes is injured late in the game, and they list him like third shooter, and he's not able to shoot. They don't want him shooting because he's injured, and Metro Stars are saying no. But Essie Bahamas, who's the referee, says this is the rule that you're playing. So Essie uses common sense and good judgment and says, okay, realizing that the game might be protested or whatever. So it turns out that Peter gets moved down to it goes 11 shots for each team, takes the last shot and scores. But so it was a big controversy. And then, walking back to the car through the tunnel right past the referee's locker room, by chance, I'm walking with Bill Sage, and as he walks out and he sees me and he says, please help us. Right. And right then I knew I had the job. So
yeah. So. Well, there's your ringing endorsement of approval right there for Bill. Right. I mean,
right.
And you've known Essie Bahamas for a long time, obviously, before MLS ever got started.
Right. In the indoor league, he was a young referee, first a goal judge in St. Louis and Kansas City, and got the opportunity to work. I actually worked with him in a preseason game back then when we were using now 2 referees on the field. So yeah, we've had a relationship for a long time and still do.
Yeah. And obviously, he was in the 98 World Cup in France. He was lambasted by multiple international media outlets for his call. I think it was the Norway-Brazil match. Why did you call that? I think it was the penalty he called, I believe. Was it?
Yeah, it was a shirt pull. It was a shirt pull. He saw it.
Yep.
No one else seemed to have seen it. There was no VAR.
No.
And even if there was, there was they didn't have the same number of cameras that they use today.
Correct.
So
yep,
there
it was a photographer. Yep.
Turned out there was a photographer behind the goal that 3 days later showed the shirt pull, and it was so obvious. I mean, the shirt is pulled way back. So his call was vindicated, and his reputation and that of American soccer referees was kept intact.
Exactly. And I will tell you this, because when I heard all this going on, and then I saw the photograph in the newspaper, I think it was in the New York Times. And when I saw that, I gave a big yell, because I know you don't usually root for referees in this business sometimes, but you know what? Because no, I know you do. You have to. You have to. Yeah. But I'm saying, before I was even in media or whatever, I was supporting him because he was an American referee. He was an American. And when I saw that, I gave a big yell, and I yelled out, "Take that, you jerks." So, I was so happy that, the reputation of him and of American soccer referees were, back in where it should be, clean. And, and then obviously you had some issues with some of the referees, didn't you? Because you were trying to get them to understand that, you have to have pride in officiating in MLS, in our first division league. And then one referee, I know you're not saying his name, and that's fine. I'm not going to ask you who it was. That'll be after the show. No, I'm just joking. He just stood up and just said, "No, we're FIFA referees." I mean, that's the wrong attitude as well. I think that's just terrible.
Every sport league in America has their own referees. Okay, so NBA referees, NFL referees, whatever, Major League Baseball. Soccer relies upon the referees from the federation, be it Canadian Federation or U.S. Soccer as now. So they were not yet prepared. They were not yet. So many leagues had failed. The referees were not yet prepared to totally embrace MLS. Or me, because I was asking them. I mean, at one meeting, our very first meeting, I brought like 200 MLS hats, and at the meeting, I said, "Here, you can, when we're talking about MLS, you need to wear an MLS hat."
Yeah.
Okay. And not that they would be wearing the hat in the game or anything like that, but just the idea of it, right? So it took a couple years, and over 15 years, we developed a really good program, I think, and it became time to professionalize them in the same way as they did in the indoor league. And the organization called Pro was put together. I was on the committee that helped establish Pro, and actually worked for Pro for a couple of years. And now it's pretty much MLS has a full-time referee program, and referees are a profession.
Yep.
And they're fit, and they're concentrated, and they know the rules, and they get the job done. Yeah.
Now I have to ask you this, and if I'm going into the Wayback Time Machine, I apologize. But I do remember this, and this was the start of the 2006 MLS season. MetroStars become New York Red Bulls, now Red Bull New York, and they were at RFK Stadium to play DC United. And you were in a room with the Red Bull players, and Tony Meola is the starting goalkeeper. He came back to the club after his time at Sporting Kansas City. And the passive offside situation pops up. And I remember the video distinctly, Tony having a problem with the passive offside rule, because you had one Red Bull player at the far post, one Red Bull player at the near post, and this was during free kicks. And even though Yuri Djorkaeff converted it, there was a problem because they didn't feel that was a passive offside situation that should be considered offside, period. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Actually contentious discussion, and Brian Hall was the referee on the game in question. So, although it's not clearly written in the law book,
Yes.
you could see now on free kick situations when the attacking team deliberately lines up players in an offside position that the referee will say to them, okay, the moment the ball is played, I'm going to whistle for offside. Okay, so that all had to be, come about. But when it came out that a player was deemed to not be offside because he was not involved in play, didn't distract from the goalkeeper, didn't interfere with the goalkeeper's vision, didn't distract the player, didn't gain an advantage. So it was, you could be here, you could be in an offside position and not deemed to be offside, but not on a free kick.
Okay. So now we have it all cleared up these many decades later. So I'm glad to get that underway and squared away. And obviously, you were also a match commissioner, not just I guess maybe outside of MLS, CONCACAF matches, FIFA World Cup qualifiers. How much work does a match commissioner need to do to make sure everything is working smoothly and without any distractions or any controversy?
Hardest job I ever had.
Yeah.
Okay. From the moment you get there, and it's a foreign country that you're doing, and I did 31 games for FIFA and CONCACAF. And the biggest game I did was Bahrain at New Zealand. And the winner goes to the World Cup. It was almost like USA Trinidad. It was the final game of qualifying.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're in charge of everything: the field, the practice facilities, the players, setting up a potential room for drug testing, protecting the referees from outside influence, running the match commissioners meeting. Making sure everything works, the loudspeaker system, the parade. The parade used to drive me crazy, where the kids come out with the flags and all. Every stadium is different. Sometimes they're coming from an end zone. Sometimes, how to line up. Yeah, it's a tremendous responsibility. And there's never a dull moment, especially in CONCACAF, where often the teams or the country is not yet prepared to run a match like that.
Exactly. I understand completely. I've seen it way too much myself. Now you left MLS 2012, I believe. You are done doing everything you could. You felt you went as far as you could, and you did a great job, obviously, with everything that's been going on. But then Fox Sports calls, and now you're becoming a rules analyst, like what Mike Pereira was doing when Fox is doing NFL games. I don't remember the year that they started it, but it was a big success in the NFL. So Fox started it, and then CBS brought their own people into it, and then you have now ESPN, now you have NBC. They have their own former referees in the game being rules analysts, and now you're the first one to do it. Of course, later on, Christina Uncle is doing it for CBS Sports as well. And ESPN's had Mark Clattenburg on from England to do the rule analyzing. What does that mean for you to, whether it be in a studio or in a room in a broadcast facility, or being in the stadium watching these games along with the broadcasters, and yet something happens and then they go to you and you give them what should happen, and whether they do what you say or they don't do what you say should happen, obviously it's the referee's discretion no matter what. You don't have that magical button to say, you have to do what I'm telling the broadcasters. You can't do that, obviously. But what does that mean for you to have this job, to analyze the rules. And did you ever meet Mike Pereira to do this job for soccer?
Well, actually, that's actually when we were forming pro for soccer.
Yep.
We brought in Mike Pereira for a day for him to talk about the NFL referees. He had not yet become a rules analyst for pro. He had just left the NFL, and he was saying he's moving to LA. He was going to be in LA for a new job, but he didn't tell us what the job was going to be.
Right.
So that's when I first met him. When I was working MLS, okay, and they were doing television every year before the season began, they would have a broadcasters meeting, and they would bring me in, and sometimes I would bring a referee. I brought in Essie one time, for example, to talk to the broadcasters about the rules, the changes in the rules, the disciplinary committee, and pretty much answer lots of questions. I made it entertaining. I brought props, I brought video, I brought all kinds of stuff. And the head of TV at that time for MLS was named Michael Cohen. He got a job when Fox first started FS1 and FS2, their new sport channels. So he recommended that I be interviewed for the rules analyst job. So I had a screen test where I had to analyze. They brought me up to the stage. It was all set up. It was a Saturday morning, right after a Bundesliga thing. Rob Stone was there. Everybody was there. And they showed video of the snow game. USA Costa Rica played in the snow in Denver.
Yep.
And asked me questions about that. And having been a match commissioner, I was able to answer some of those questions. Should the game have been canceled? The whole thing. Was it a penalty? Wasn't it not a penalty? So I got the job. And then and that's like 11 years ago. So I did, this coming World Cup will be my third men's World Cup. I'll be going to Los Angeles and be in the studio for 6 weeks, practically. If I could show you, this is my home office. Right there is a thing called Home Cam. Can you see it?
Wow.
Okay,
Yes.
It's a monitor with a camera on top. And let's see, up there is one of the lights that come on. And there's another light. And behind me here is a backdrop thing where they light up and it says Fox Sports or whatever. So I sometimes can do it from home.
Okay.
And sometimes I do it on the road. Not too often in the stadium. Not too often in the stadium. But it's a challenging assignment. This coming World Cup, Mark Clattenburg and I will be sharing the games.
Good.
It's 104 games. You got to obviously know the rules.
Absolutely.
You have to read the body language of the referees. You have to know what happened in every game before that, as well as the game going. Sometimes a decision is made with a little bit of influence of a previous decision. So you have to pay attention, focus the entire time. And you've got to use educated guesswork. So when they call, they say, let's bring in Dr. Joe, especially when they go to the monitor, because that gives the broadcast team time. Soccer being fluid as it is, it would be hard, or I've done it a few times, but hard talking while the game is going on, because I could be talking about a rule that happened 30 seconds ago and a goal could be scored, and that would totally mess up everything. So lots of times when the referee goes to the monitor, that's when they'll bring me in. So I get to see, unfortunately, I don't get to see all the video. The referee at the monitor sometimes sees a lot more video than we get to see. I don't get to hear what the referee is speaking to the VAR. That would be helpful.
Yep.
So based on what I do see, they've asked me to say pretty much what the decision will be.
Right.
So I've been lucky most of the time.
9 times out of 10.
I'd like to say 85%.
Okay, fine.
85% of the time. The other 15%, the referee is wrong.
Stamp of approval.
I got lucky in the World Cup final, the Croatian handball.
Yep.
Excuse me. I called that right. And Tori Penso had a handball in her game. I think she was so close to it that she didn't see it. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So the VAR is saying, Tori, you gotta. I'm not hearing this. I'm assuming. Look at a different angle. Come look at a different angle. She doesn't want to make the call. I tell by her body language, she finally agrees to go and look at a different angle. It's a clear handball. So I'm able to say before she makes the decision, it's going to be a penalty.
Yep.
As it turned out, the player missed a penalty kick, as it was. So, yeah, yes. I'm looking forward. I leave for LA on the 8th of June, and I'll be there to the end of the tournament.
That's fantastic. It's really amazing how close we are. We're finally getting our second World Cup here in the United States after 1994, so many years ago, from what we had across this country. Now we're sharing this one with our neighbors to the north in Canada, sharing with our neighbors to the south in Mexico. It's like we've evolved. This game's evolved how many years? Different, new laws made, adjustments to current laws. Technology has come in. VAR has been, one of those things. I still feel there are certain countries that don't know what they're doing with VAR. Because I think they're still going with, how to officiate the game the old-fashioned way. Sometimes they're just not used to being involved with the technology. But I feel like for us in the United States and MLS, as well as I would probably say some areas in CONCACAF, some areas in Europe, I feel like we do have a grip and we can decipher what is on the VAR and to help the referees miss something they just missed in a blink of an eye. It does help them. And I understand no one likes to see disruption of the flow of the game. But if we're going to get it right, we got to make sure that we have the right people to teach them, like yourself. You've done an excellent job of helping officials, current ones, new ones, teach an old dog new tricks, that sort of stuff. You're the one that's there to give that enhancement because you have a good grip of what is in front of you and what the changes for this game means for yourself, for the referee profession, and everybody.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, the real key with VAR is the definition of what is a clear and obvious error. That's the key. So that's why you need the team in the VAR booth to have the same understanding of the game as the referee, to speak the same language, to perhaps work together over a period to be part of the team. That's a really important part because in some countries, they use VAR far too many times because they don't understand what's a clear and obvious error. And the whole concept is meant only to correct those clear and obvious errors which impact the outcome of the game.
Exactly. This has been a great book once again, Joe. I loved every minute of it. I enjoyed the read. I love the pictures you put into the book at the end of each chapter. Some of the stuff actually that I've never seen or I have seen in the past, just haven't seen in a long time. You next to your NASCAR stock car. That's amazing. You're holding your trophy in the car, which is also amazing. being part of University of New Haven, all your old photos when you were just a young lad, all these professional clubs, these college teams that you've coached, and of course, being an MLS, of course, and now you with the headset on. And before I say goodbye to you, obviously, your wife is still with you, Barbara. For how many years have you and Barbara been married?
We just celebrated 61.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations! Very happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
She's been by your side all this time. It's just amazing.
At one time before the growth and development of women's soccer, Barbara saw more soccer games than any woman in America.
That's tremendous. And should she also have a spot in the Hall of Fame too?
Absolutely. But if you've read the book, I dedicate the book to her, because
yes,
she has been by my side from the early days at Long Island University.
Fantastic. Dr. Joe Machnik, ladies and gentlemen. Joe, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. This has really been a wonderful thing for me. I'm not a history expert, but I feel that the history of our game in the United States is still an important thing to have. It's still an important thing to talk about. You've just been a trove of history that I wished I could see, back then. I wish I had a time machine. I don't. Or if you're a Doctor Who fan, I wish I had a TARDIS. I don't.
Or an Outlander. Or an Outlander. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the book. I know if people that are interested in soccer and how we got to where we are with the World Cup coming in just a few short days now, the book's available in 3 formats. Soft cover, black and white. You mentioned the pictures. There's 115 pictures, over 900 names. The hardcover is in full color, and it's also available as an ebook that you can do a Kindle, read on your phone, or whatever. But thank you for this opportunity. Amazon.com is where the book can be purchased.
Absolutely. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joe Machnik, the rules analyst for Fox Sports, this upcoming summer's FIFA World Cup in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Joe, again, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And once again, that's Dr. Joe Machnik on the show to talk about his book. I know, apologies, very long recorded interview, but look, this is important. When you have a man like that has been involved in the game for as long as he has, it's really wonderful to talk about what he's done. And, I appreciate Joe's insight, his life, all in that book. And once again, go online to Amazon to purchase. I think it's available Barnes & Nobles, like you said. It's available soft cover, hardcover, and also e-cover as well on those Kindle pads and everything. So it should be a lot of fun to take a read, see those photos, and it's just been whirlwind. We're going to finish it off real quick, reviewing the last New York Red Bull match, and that was, of course, on the road against Sporting Kansas City, a 2-1 victory on the road as Jorge Ruvalcaba scored a brace, a quick one in the first 4 to 5 minutes of the match, put it brilliant ball from Gustav Bregren, and then late in the first half stoppage time, great pass from Julian Hall, a nice little cutback, and then whammo right into the back of the net, inside the back post. Jorge Ruvalcaba has been tremendous. He already now has 7 goals on the season. He's 2 behind his teammate Julian Hall for the club lead in goals this season. Bit of a slow start, but he was able to get out there and put them away. And now it looks like he's going to improve. We'll see what happens. He was listed on the 55-man preliminary roster for the World Cup for the Mexican national team, even though he is considered American, but he has been obviously Mexican American. So he's considered part of the Mexican national team. If he chooses to switch over, he may switch. We'll find out. If it ever does happen, I don't think it will, but if it does, we'll see what happens. But you know what? Look, if he makes that roster, it's an amazing start for him. And to have those 7 goals has been tremendous, absolutely tremendous by Jorge Ruvalcaba. Calvin Harris, guys, say that was a hell of a goal to make it 2-1 Red Bulls. That little rainbow chip towards him, and then it just somehow sticks his right foot out and off the front of his toes, just rainbow chips it over Ethan Horvath, and found a way to put it in the back of the net and made it 2-1. This was a game where the Red Bulls should have been better, should have had more chances. I felt defensively they were a little shaky. If not for the goalkeeping of Ethan Horvath, then this would have been either a 2-2 draw or a 3-2 loss against Sporting Kansas City. But for the Red Bull New York, they were able to get the win. They held on. That's all that matters. You have the lead. You didn't lose the lead. You didn't drop 2 points. You didn't drop all 3 points. You took all 3 points. And right now for Red Bull New York, they are in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. NYCFC was in 6th. Now they've basically dropped to 8th or 9th. They're in the wild card spot at the moment. So for NYCFC, they are several notches below, and that means we're in the World Cup break. That's right. After this past weekend, we are now in the World Cup break. It is absolutely phenomenal that we're here now. Now we can take it easy. We already know about the roster, who was selected for the U.S. men's national team. Very soon we'll find out who's going to be selected for the Canadian men's national team and for the Mexican men's national team. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, I will be here. We're going to have FIFA World Cup preview and review shows here on the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. Just got to get my team together, hopefully I'll announce it on social media, Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, hopefully as well. So it should be a lot of fun, and it should be a great time. Other than that, I want to thank my guest tonight, Dr. Joe Machnik, Rules Analyst for Fox Sports, and, of course, for the FIFA World Cup coming in. He'll be joined by Mark Clattenburg in the studios of Fox Sports in Los Angeles. So it should be really interesting to see what both Joe and Mark Clattenburg will do, depending on who gets what in the rotation for those matches. And we'll see what happens. But other than that, just to have him on the show, a very nice trove of history and a lot of fun. Once again, my name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you very much for watching me tonight. And as always, I beg of you to please, 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 please enjoy your football. Thank you. Take care. So long. Have a good night. And bye-bye for now. Have a good night, everybody.